Good morning, and welcome to Gen Taub Live, where it is crazy town all day today. Yes, my friends, let's just go hard with crazy town. Here we go. I know you don't expect to be hit with crazy town first effing thing Monday morning, my friends, but this is what we need to do. Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce. Yes, the very man who was on national television last week pumping up Elon Musk stock is now punching down at grandma. I need to play this for you and then we'll talk about it on the other side. It is crazy town.
Let's say Social Security didn't send out their checks this month. My mother-in-law, who's 94, she wouldn't call and complain. She just
No.
wouldn't. She'd think something got messed up, and she'll get it next month.
Yeah.
A fraudster always makes the loudest noise, screaming, yelling, and complaining.
Whoa. What an absolute pig. And friends, the initial reaction you have is valid, but this is multi-layered. As someone who has studied white collar crime and public corruption and people like this man, this is so this is so cruel what he is doing. Now let's just break this down. First of all, Howard Lutnick's mother-in-law. So Howard Lutnick, this man who is Secretary of Commerce, I don't know, what's his net worth? You know, roughly between, I don't know, 2 to 4 billion. I just Googled it. This man's worth between 2 to 4 billion. And his mother-in-law, because she's legally allowed to, gets her, I'm presuming, her social security check every month. Do you think Howard Lutnick's wife, and do you think Howard Lutnick himself allows the mother-in-law to live solely from month to month on her social security check? Her social security check, I don't know what they max out at these days, maybe 2000 a month ish. Let's say she gets $2,500 a month. That $2,500 a month is not supporting. I can just say this. If it is actually the only money paying her rent in like a fifth floor walk up, and she's got to choose between her medicine and keeping the heat on, then fuck this man, right? Okay, so first of all, that's not happening. Number two, she's in her 90s. I doubt that she is paying her own bills. Now, I'm not going to say that it's his wife or someone else in the family or someone hired to do this that is paying her bills. But honestly, now that could be. Now, on the other hand, she could be as sharp as a tack, just like my mother was. And let me tell you, my mother, who was the furthest thing from a fraudster, always knew when her social security check came in, as well as her, what are they called, required minimum distributions from her retirement account. She knew when they hit. And even when she was in the hospital, even close to before when she was in hospice, she wanted me to make sure that the money had hit the account because I was paying her bills. Now, honestly, I don't know the day of the month it came, but let me tell you, if that check didn't come in, my mom would have wondered and asked about it. And my mom was not living in poverty, but she certainly isn't Howard Lutnick's mother-in-law. So that's just number one. Number two, what he is doing with this story by saying only fraudsters complain, he is sending a message to scare people that if your check is late or if Social Security skips a month, which they have not done that I'm aware of ever, just stop paying Social Security benefits that I am aware of. Maybe there was a moment, but from what I understand in the news, I have not done deep research. This has not happened. So, what he's suggesting is if your grandma or your mother literally is waiting for the check and is either living month to month on that check and they complain, they're going to be tagged for potential fraud. And then if Lutnick, who's Secretary of Commerce, now he's not in charge of Social Security, if that's his view, then Elon Musk's team, the threat here is, I don't know if they'll do it. I hope not. The threat is if you complain, we'll flag you as a fraudster because Howard Lutnick, who has never done any empirical studies about whether someone who speaks up because you're fucking not giving them their paycheck is a fraudster, right? He doesn't know that. This is designed to shut you and your grandma up and your mom or your dad or whatever. If you are someone getting a social security check. So what I need to say to you is that's not just crazy town, it's cruel town. And so that is where I am beginning. Now, speaking of billionaires, poor Elon Musk actually is a fraudster. And he is holding meetings, my friends. He is holding meetings with his impromptu meetings with his employees. You know, I don't know if it's the whole rank and file at Tesla or what group of employees, begging them not to sell their Tesla stock. And I want to show you this chart in a second. Why is he begging them? Well, I know you've heard all kinds of numbers. He's saying, hang on to the stock. He's saying, we have a big future, okay? Because he knows the number is getting really low. The 52-week high. So over the course of this, a year, like from, what are we now? The 24th of March? Like from last March until last Friday, right? So the end of March of 2024 until now, the 52-week high was $488.54. It is now down to $138.80. Now, I know there are people who say, oh, his stock has dropped nearly 50%, but they're talking about a different time frame than I am. I'm looking at 1 year, not a calendar year, not the last few months, not since Donald Trump's been elected, not since Elon Musk started Doge. This is a disaster for Elon. And he is begging them. He is begging them to hang on to their stock. Now, I want to make you aware that maybe the rank and file will believe this bullshit, but so-called insiders, if you're a certain level of executive at a company, guys, this is going to get a little weedy. Under federal securities laws, when you sell your stock, you have to file something called a Form 4. Yes, it is all that exciting. And Tesla executives have filed a lot of Form 4s, and I want to show you that. And I think I can just do it by going to the SEC website. Guys, well, let's just do this together. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this together. I want to show you. I want to show you the Tesla fucking executives. I want to show you how to do this. Okay, so we're on the Securities and Exchange Commission website, and there's a lot of ways we can do this. But I'm going to show you. If you look up at the top, you can say it says search SEC and Edgar. And search filings on the left. I'm going to go search filings, latest filings, and the company. I'm going to write down the Tesla, TSLA, retrieve filings. Okay, I did not do a good job with that. Let's go to search the homepage of Edgar, and I'm going to write Tesla. Let's try that here. TSLA, there we go, Tesla Inc. No thanks, I don't want to give you feedback. Now, do you see where it says ownership disclosures? I'm going to expand that. Oh, my friends, look. Date of changes in beneficial ownership of security. Do you see, guys? This says insider transactions. Are you looking at what I'm looking at? Over to the right. Over to the right. This is insider transactions. And we can look at these. View all insider transactions. Holy shit, dudes. Holy moly, guys, look at this. Let's just look recently. Since March 5th, we have 4 different filings of sales. Let's look at the 12th. Let's open this document. We have the sale of common stock. James Murdoch. Oh, little baby James Murdoch from the Murdoch family. Guys, he's on the board of directors and he sold a whole bunch of common stock. And you have him listed. Some of it looks like it might be in his name, direct ownership. Do you see that? DDD? And I is indirect. He has something called the JRM Revocable Trust. He's got another trust called the Seven Hills Trust. And then he's also sold, cashed in some stock options. And he had someone who's his power of attorney do that. And this is because he is a director of the company and he had to sell this stock, right? And he sold some shares, if you want to look at this, that he purchased at $23 a share, like really early purchases that he acquired at that place. And then others, and then we're saying that he disposed of, oh, I see. So what's going on here? The reason why it says acquired and disposed of, those are the stock options he's finally cashing in. That makes sense. And then the others, this is just flat out stock he's owned. So this is substantial amounts of money. Just the sold at $240. If you multiply 477, and I'm going to stop sharing now because you get the idea. Let's multiply 477 times 240. The other ones he made a huge bundle on. Let's just do the calculator. Actually, I don't want to do it now and bore you. But maybe someone in my chat can multiply 244 by 477 and tell me how much money that is. But what's much more important is he flipped some stock. He was able to cash in on stock options by buying a certain number of Tesla shares at $23 a share and selling them at $240. Dude, I don't know how much James Murdoch made, but let me tell you, James Murdoch and James Murdoch's mother-in-law are probably not going to call if they don't get their Social Security check. What's my fucking point here, you guys? The Tesla insiders who don't even fucking need the money probably are cashing in their stock, and they're doing it at the high points. And now that the stock is cratering, Elon Musk is telling the ordinary employees, hang in there. Don't sell your stock. Maybe Howard Lutnick is wrong. Maybe it's not the people who holler and loudly and say, where the hell is the check? I can't pay my bills. Maybe it's the people who quietly vacuum wealth out of our society and tell everyone it's okay, just hang in there, that are the fraudsters. Okay, guys. Now, I started out with some crazy town, but do you want a little more crazy? Let's do it. A little more crazy. Guys, I'm full of crazy today. So we also have on the crazy front. I mean, this is insane. So you know how Russia attacked Ukraine. And that is, I would say, indisputable. And yet, we now have a view from the Trump administration, from Steve, I think his name is Steve Witkoff. I'm pretty sure he's the Trump's foreign envoy. And he did an interview that is freaking out the world because he is basically mouthing Kremlin talking points. And he literally says that he doesn't think Vladimir Putin is a bad guy. I gotta play this from the Trump foreign envoy. Let's hear it.
You seem convinced that he doesn't want to expand the territory beyond what he's taken now. I know there's going to be conversation about how much of that Ukraine does or doesn't get back. But you're convinced that he's not going to go further or have aspirations towards Europe. Obviously, they're concerned about that being much closer to this geographically. But 2014, we had Crimea. That hasn't come back. Why? And he's, gone far beyond that in this most recent attack on Ukraine. So why are you convinced that he won't press further if he's given some reward or some territory this time around?
Well, look, he's been at war for several years. It's in large part been about those 5 regions, and it's in his speeches. There's a view within the country of Russia that these are Russian territories, that there are referendums within these territories that justify these actions. This is not me taking sides. I'm just identifying what the issues are. I've never seen a conflict that can be resolved without level setting the facts, and we're level setting the facts. Now, I've been asked my opinion, so about what President Putin's motives are on a larger scale, and I simply have said that I just don't see that he wants to take all of Europe. This is a much different situation than it was in World War II. In World War II, there was no NATO. So you have countries that are armed there. To me, it just does. I take him at his word in this sense. So, and I think the Europeans are beginning to come to that belief too. But it sort of doesn't matter. That's an academic issue.
Okay, not an academic issue. And no, Europe isn't coming to this view, Mr. Witkoff. I want to share with you instead, not what was playing on
Issue
sorry, this
here,
was
the agenda set.
Fox News. Okay, on Fox News. Let's just finish listening to this. Here's how he concludes, and we're going to see how the rest of the world actually looks at this. And by the way, Witkoff is the special envoy to the Middle East, but now he's playing a role in Russia. I guess he's the peace envoy because he's doing such a good job in Gaza right now.
President Trump, he is my boss, and I adhere to that fact. The agenda is stop the killing, stop the carnage. Let's end this thing. You can't end things without communicating with both sides.
Okay, I want to stop the carnage. I want to stop the killing. I don't think appeasing Russia is the way to do that. I'm not an expert in foreign policy, so let's take a look outside of Crazy Town. Let's take a look at how the rest of the world is looking at this. So this is from CNN. Here's Witkoff, U.S. Middle East envoy. Steve Witkoff is also playing a key role in talks with Russia over its war in Ukraine. And here we go. U.S. President Donald Trump's foreign envoy praised, foreign envoy praised Russian President Vladimir Putin, struggled to recall the names of 4 occupied Ukrainian regions and echoed a swath of Kremlin talking points in a remarkable podcast that will alarm officials in Kyiv and the West. So he was on with Tucker Carlson, and it says in this interview, Witkoff revealed Russia's President Putin had commissioned a portrait of Trump and sent it to him. Said the administration was making progress that no one thought was possible. He also said that these regions were Russian speaking, Donetsk, Luhansk, I cannot pronounce them, Kherson, and one more. Anyhow, this is a problem. People are concerned in Europe about this. And this seems crazy, but commissioning a portrait, if it's a flattering portrait, that's kind of maybe all you need to do to make Donald Trump happy. And okay, you're not going to believe this, but I'm not kidding you. He is obsessed with portraits. We know that he even used a charitable foundation, which he was then banned from and fined for cheating. Donald Trump years ago used a charitable foundation he was running with his adult children to purchase a painting of him looking like a young guy in a tennis sweater, like a giant fucking painting. I find that people who put pictures of themselves all over and their name all over have some sort of narcissistic injury, or are deeply needing to remind themselves of their self-worth. And I find that a painful thing to witness in adults. But when they're a fucking leader, not leader of the free world, puppet of the leaders of the free world, Elon Musk and I guess Putin, not so free anymore. When that happens, it's a deep danger because people can just flatter him with nice pictures. Now, I make it a rule not to put Donald Trump's face up here, but I'm making one exception because he hates this portrait. And here we go, a little more crazy town. I'm going to show you this. So this was Aaron Ruper's feed. The president is laser focused on the big issues. Let's bump this up. Nobody likes a bad picture or painting of themselves, but the one in Colorado in the state capitol put up by the governor, along with all other presidents, was purposefully distorted to a level that even I perhaps have never seen before. The artist also did President Obama, and he looks wonderful. But the one of me is truly the worst. She must have lost her talent as she got older. In any event, I would much prefer not having a picture than having this one. But many people from Colorado have called and written to complain. In fact, they are actually angry about it. I am speaking on their behalf to the radical left governor, Jared Polis, who is extremely weak on crime, in particular with respect to Tren de Aragua. Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's what I've got. You can bait this man with a tweet and you can pull him hook, line, and sinker with flattery. And the problem is we are tied to that line, but not forever, my friends, I'm going to have some good news. But before I get to that, speaking of the Guatemalan gang, I have no doubt that there are people in this country who are either born here or not, who participate in gang activity, and that a large portion of gang activity can involve violence within the gang community, violence that spills over, and violence directed at people completely outside of that world. And this is terrible. And I think if you are members of a gang and from a different country, that yes, if there's evidence of that you have participated in violent activities, or if there is a RICO case suggesting that you are a part of a criminal organization and those RICO charges have been filed, go for it. Arrest, charge, detain. This is the process we have, and it's a good one. And let me tell you, the criminal RICO statute could fucking absolutely handle this shit. Okay, there are plenty of federal statutes. But what we cannot do, and what was done in this country, is just declare. And by the way, there's also the Alien Enemies Act. But even with the Alien Enemies Act, the president, under the constraints of due process, must provide evidence that the person they're saying falls within the category that is being focused on actually does. In the absence of due process, you could grab anyone. You could grab me. You could grab the person at Starbucks who ground the coffee beans that I made in I'm going this way, my coffee pot, right? Anyone could be taken up. And this isn't a hypothetical. This is heartbreaking. And so I want to share with you, I don't know if you've seen this or heard about this, but one of the men who was rounded up and taken into custody and had his head shaved and stuff, as they're grabbing him, he was crying, "I am not a gang member. I'm a hairdresser." And I think he's a makeup artist in the US. And it is tragic that he's now in a prison camp in El Salvador. I want you to see this young man, and you be the judge of whether you think he's part of a violent gang. Look at this beautiful young man. So this is Tim Miller's post. You are telling me that this man is Chandaragua? He was so dangerous, we had to send him to a foreign prison camp to be beaten with no due process? Do you have any soul left, Marco Rubio? This is a gorgeous, obviously hardworking, talented makeup artist who presents to me as gay. And I say that in a positive way. And I also say he doesn't look like a gang member. And he was crying out for his mother. So, everyone, even if you look like a gang member, whatever that looks like, not like this man, you absolutely must have due process. How do we know who the people are who were disappeared off the streets? And yet, if you can believe this, when confronted, and here's how we get to more crazy town, when confronted, when Tom Homan was confronted with this possibility, no compassion, no recognition. Let us play this from the weekend news program.
Let me ask you one specific example, and there are many, but one specific example is somebody that was on one of those flights. His name is Jersey Reyes Barrios. He was a professional soccer player in Venezuela, and his lawyer says that he was caught up in this because he had a tattoo that he said was chosen because it is a tattoo that is similar to the logo of his favorite soccer team, Real Madrid. Says he's got no criminal record whatsoever and has never been a gang member. Now that person is now apparently in that prison in El Salvador with no ability now to contact his lawyer, no rights as far as they can tell, no rights at all to defend himself or prove his innocence. I mean, what happens to somebody like that?
Well, look, they can make those claims, and of course we have information that says the complete opposite. A member of TDA, affiliated with TDA, which again,
will you release that information?
A terrorist organization.
Will you release the information?
Look, that's going to be that would be litigated in the courts with this judge. I'm not going to get into every specific case because there's 260 cases. We got to count on the men and women who do this every day for a living, who designated these people as members of TDA through, like I said, various law enforcement methods. This will be litigated, but as of right now, I've been assured by the highest levels in ICE that every one of these members, every one of these men are members of TDA. There's going to be more litigation.
If a mistake was made, let's say there's 200 odd people, and let's say, all but 5 are really part of this game. If 5 mistakes were made, there's nobody who's going to admit that because they'll be fired, they'll be pressured. This is why you don't wait till it's litigated later. You don't round up people. We have a fucking constitution. Have you not, read the 4th Amendment? Jesus Christ. I'm not even going to pull up the 4th Amendment for you guys. I think you understand that you cannot be subject to these kinds of searches and seizures. I think you understand the concept of due process. You don't, even when there is a statute like the Alien Enemies Act, which is almost never used, even when you have statutes like that, you still have to demonstrate up front before you take someone out of the country and put them in a prison camp, in a slave labor camp to be essentially brutalized. It's beyond, you guys. This is the worst thing, and it gets worse from here. And so what can we do? Okay, before I get to our last crazy town, what we can do, number 1, we will not take part in the lie. Alexander Solzhenitsyn lived through an era with this, gulags and misinformation. What also do we need to know? We need to know, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. What is our demand? We need these fascists out of office. And I want to share with you, I promise to do it every day. This is the Hands Off rally. This is the mass mobilization planned for Saturday, April 5th. Saturday, April 5th. This is what we can do. All 50 states, there are rallies. 50 states, 50 rallies, basically one message. It's not just the 50-50 organization. It is all the indivisible groups are organizing, as well as, I believe, in addition, we have labor unions. If you are part of any organization that cares about shared prosperity, that cares about due process, human rights, loving our neighbor as ourselves, the possibility, the dream of democracy, even when we have always struggled for this reality. Thank you, Susan. Susan Thompson has put up various links. We've got the indivisible link, and we have hands off. You can go to handsoff2025.com. And we also have 5051. They're all here. Thank you, Blue Lady, who's registered. She just needs to make a sign and a t-shirt. I feel so strongly isn't the word. I feel so at peace that we're going to come together. We're going to come together non-violently. We're going to come together with our voices. And yes, we are not, Grumpy Cat said we are not at war with Venezuela. No, we are not. We are not. And there's a gang there. I mean, what I'm saying is, I don't think the Alien Enemies Act, I don't think the idea of him invoking it stands muster. But even if he is able to invoke it, you can't just say this person falls into the category without any kind of due process. Anyhow, so we are getting ready. We are going to mobilize, and this is going to be incredible. What I would say to you is, as we get closer, I'll give you some tips about what to do if the crowds get large. I mean, in some places like New York, you can spread out. Even though New York is a dense place, it can spread out. When I went to the Women's March in Boston, we were in a park and they kind of kettled it off, and it was so tight, and it made me really anxious. And so I think you want to figure out where your rally is, find a space where you can be comfortable, and so on. We'll talk about that later. This is very exciting. Now, what is the last thing I want to say before we do our last crazy town? Hannah Arendt, Origins of Totalitarianism. I'm going to read this to you. If everybody lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies, but rather that nobody believes anything any longer. And a people that no longer can believe anything cannot make up its mind. It is deprived not only of its capacity to act, but also of its capacity to think and to judge. And with such a people, you can let them do with them what you please. Now, I did stumble over those last words, but I got the meaning. Now, why do I mention this now? Because there's two things. There's the lies, and then there's the unity around the truth. When we come together, even if we don't affect things, when we come together and you see millions of people do this, when you watch shows like this, or Mary's Trump show, or Midas Touch, or talk to friends, and you don't feel alone, and you get what's really happening, then you are not as easily manipulated. All of us can feel gaslit. All of us can. Now, I'm going to play one last crazy town before we go. Let's do it, you guys. I'm sorry, but it's just crazy. Now, setting this crazy town up, and then I will plan to see you in the morning. So we love Jasmine Crockett. We've talked about this. And Jasmine Crockett is at the level of, in terms of public popularity, almost, I think I would say, the level of Bernie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But she's more vulnerable because she's not quite as protected, and she is also a Black woman. And now Pam Bondi is issuing public threats against Jasmine Crockett. And We need to have her back. Let's play it.
We are not coming off these charges. We are looking at everything, especially if this is a concerted effort. This is domestic terrorism. And Maria, now you have this Congresswoman Crockett who is calling for attacks on Elon Musk on her birthday. Let's take him out on my birthday, she says. And yet she turns and says, oh, I'm not calling for violence. Well, she is an elected public official. And so she needs to tread very carefully, because nothing will happen to Elon Musk, and we're going to fight to protect all of the Tesla owners throughout this country, and it's this basic safety once again.
Okay. She's not calling for violence. The Tesla takedown is about the stock price. Secondly, I'm so glad that Tesla owners, I mean, you know how let me just back up. The Trump administration is against enforcing civil rights protections, but now they're creating a protected class of Tesla owners, right? So yeah, here's the deal. Here's the craziest thing. We have members of Congress. We have people who hate the idea of having their gas stoves taken away. Let me just back up. Do you remember? And this relates to Tesla. Do you remember when Kamala Harris was running for office and they accused Democrats and Kamala Harris that they were going to come for your gas stove and you were going to be stuck with an electric stove? Now they're coming for your gas cars. And we have people in Congress who hate the Green New Deal, who hate the idea of electric cars, who now proudly own Teslas. So you make it make sense, you guys. It's Monday. I can't. Happy Crazy Town, happy Monday, and see you in the morning on time tomorrow.